And the second announcement is that you should love today so much that you register for the Identity Applied event on November 8th. It is going to be an awesome time of delving deeper into identity. So pause there, listen to everything else we say, and then go register on Church Center.
Can you talk? Can you talk a little bit about what those days look like time wise, and so people kind of get a feel for what that might look like? Because I know we always talk about the day it is, but I've been asked a few times about what that day looks like. Is it all day? Is it a half day? Is it 9 to 9?
Ooh, 9 to 9. We're gonna go for 24 hours straight. No, I'm kidding. So, also, we've just established that Patrick is the Danny of the group that is gonna ask the important questions, and I love that. It is from 9 to 5 on November 8th, so it is an all-day commitment. You'll have like a 2-hour window break for lunch. Sorry, we don't feed you. Um, but other than that, it's an all day commitment. So you have a session in the morning, break for lunch, and then afternoon where we kind of like do more tangible things.
Is there still time to register if you have not ever heard your identity?
There is. You can register for the Hear Your Identity portion, and we'll set up a one on one session with you before the event to hear that. And there is still time. So if you register now, we have like a week and a half to make that happen for you.
And I think as we go through this conversation, you'll see a little bit about the dynamic that we've mentioned in doing announcements of what's different about this event, and kind of that journey in identity becomes a little bit clearer, I hope, as we speak, as we share kind of some of the testimonies of ourselves and those that we've helped walk through identity, that it becomes a little clearer why Identity Applied is so important as another step, as a next step in continuing that journey of what is identity, why is it important, and what does that actually tangibly look like as you walk out living in your identity.
I have a question for all you watching it online. Have you done the Hear Your Identity events or delved into your identity? And if you have, what's your identity? Tell us on the comments. We want to hear who you are.
David, what's your identity?
Abundant giver, and my purpose has something to do with receiving and releasing.
How about you, TJ?
My identity is son of laughter. As thank you. As for purpose, I'm still learning what that looks like, but obviously it's to bring some kind of laughter and joy. So I also heard a second part to it, which was hope of God. So son of laughter, hope of God. So I bring a lot of hope. Yeah. What about you, Eric? What's your identity?
I don't know why it's not working. It's fine. My identity is anointed hands. And then the second time I went through it with the second half, like what we're about to do and coming up on the 8th, I got floating wind. So, yeah. You know, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Yeah. But more actually, it was really about coming into this new aspect of like kind of just dancing with God and being a part of like just letting my sail go up and just floating with wherever Holy Spirit was taking me, which is kind of a new thing for me because I have to be able to release a lot of control and, you know, anointed hand gets things done. You know what I mean? Floating wind lets things be done. Dang.
Patrick, what's yours?
Mine is tongues of fire. And like these guys also, as we've done this further, there's been other iterations of who I am. And my purpose is movement.
I am Sacred Vessel, and my purpose is creating space.
have my phone. What was the first question, David? You got your phone on you?
One of the questions has to do with, have we recognized what our life has been like when we're not living in our identity, and like what's the difference when we are living in our identity? The difference in our lives when we're not living in our identity versus when we are living in our identity.
I can say first and foremost is you actually recognize when you're not living in your identity after going through this, which is a whole new experience in itself. But it's so evident, like you can't get away from it. You know you're not living out of who you truly are, and you have to face that, and you have to, like, you can't not be aware of it. Like, you can go back to your old self in that, like, you're okay with it, but you can't not be aware that you're living in a false identity. And it really makes it harder when then someone points that out, because you're like, yeah, I know. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing that you can actually identify. I don't feel like my true self anymore, and that is so freeing to know that you're operating in something that you shouldn't be, or you're being somebody that's not authentic. And that's super freeing because it allows you to acknowledge that and like step in the other direction if you choose. So I think just the acknowledging it is like the biggest part that I've noticed, is like that you can delineate between the two.
Evelyn's working very hard in the background. Evelyn, what was yours? What was you? Evelyn's was Roaring River. That's right. I just want to talk about how difficult, though, it was at the very start, going in and out of your identity. Like, as an like to hone in on the characteristics of what was like anointed hand for me and what wasn't. Like, I don't know. It took a good, I want to say 6 to 8 months. I mean, it's still taking time. Like, now I could just be like, oh, I'm not living from anointed hand or floating wind or whatever. But at the very start, it was a lot of like people calling me out. There was like a lot of accountability that really, really helped at the start. Like, obviously working at the church with Jonathan and Joanna and stuff. They're like, are you working? Is this anointed hand speaking, or is this Eric? And I'd be like, yeah, fine. So, yeah. But when it got easier and easier to recognize that I was just not like, oh, that's not how anointed hand would respond to this situation, or yeah, it just really helped me at least take a pause. I'm somebody who really likes to move very quickly, see results, get things done. And so it helped me take a pause and kind of look at the situation from not only an outside perspective, but also then create the space to let God come into that situation as well, and not stand in the way of allowing that relationship to happen.
So a follow-up question to that, Eric, and kind of I feel like it's kind of a theme, is like how much identity doesn't necessarily give you full clarity, or it's not a goal to know what God calls you, but it's more about the process of that. Would you like, I feel like you kind of touched on that, but like, do you think that that's the more important thing in here in your identity, is like kind of figuring out the process of who you are with God, more so than like, okay, now I need to act like this. I need to act like anointed hand.
You're talking more like it's a journey, not a destination kind of thing. Yeah. For me at least, I found that if I was focused on the destination, that was also not living from my identity. So the journey with God, I really love people who have been through something really, really tough and has embraced the journey, because you can tell that their relationship with God is just so tight. Ted's a good example. You could just see it when he calls God friend, how much that actually means. And I'm sitting there going, see, that's where I want to be. As anointed hand, no matter what my identity I'm living from, anointed hand, floating river, all the things God calls me, it's only to live in that moment with God. And the minute that I start focusing on the destination, I kind of lose it because, well, I'm not there yet. Well, yeah, you're never going to be there yet, because once you get there, then you're not there. So, whoops.
I think for me, it's been very like telling to see, like, I know Jonathan talks about this when he talks about identity, but how I used to accidentally bump into my identity. Like, our whole lives, like, we've operated in and out of this thing, right? And so seeing like, oh, like that's why I came so alive in that experience. And now to do it with such intention, it's like very helpful to see, like, when I think of even just like big life events, like when I had Eleanor, I hadn't gone through this identity journey yet, but I can see how like God was trying to like tell me who I was through that experience. But when I had James, like I had gone through this process, and it was so like life transforming to remind myself in an 8-day stay in the hospital that I am a sacred vessel. And like that, yeah, like it was such a like, honestly, like in those two experiences, they were so similar, and I was being told such similar things by the doctor, and the way that I handled them was completely different. Like the first time it was like, oh gosh, like, am I going to be a good mother? Like, I have this bad body. Like, can I do this? To the second time, like with James, like literally like laying in the hospital bed, and like no matter what was happening, just like taking these deep breaths and saying like, I am a sacred vessel, my body is good. And like how that experience refined my identity even further, just because I was choosing it out of intention.
I think you pointed a little bit too, and I'm sure you guys have experience of it, is after you hear your identity, you get, I don't know if it's just you see the opportunities or the hard things that you go through to kind of refine that, almost come like immediately. Um, but that's like an important part of like, I feel like, establishing those true identities. I don't know if
I would say for me, probably one of the biggest switch is learning like abundant giver could mean several things. Like the biggest thing that I'm giving right now is encouragement. So I know close, but anywhere between 7 to 10 people that have called on me for encouragement, just that I presently have in my life right now. And one, I have a praise report from yesterday. I have a friend at work that I've been encouraging for a whole year to take a test to pass, and so she would sign up and then not take it, and so I just spent a year just giving an abundance of encouragement that she could do it and she could make it, and then she finally was able to take it yesterday, and she sent me a text and said thank you for that push for a year to take the test. And so going back to the other question about what's it live like to not feel in my identity, I can notice how much depression is around me, and I can spend time really thinking like, why is everybody so depressed? It's like, oh no, you have the words to give the words, you have abundance of encouragement, so use your gift. And so I've just spent time encouraging and pushing people and just spreading life and using that gift, and understanding that God does not run out of encouragement, and so I won't either. I can keep doing this.
do you feel like more connected then to God the encourager because you know that that's who you're supposed to be?
Yes, and I would say it's funny because like I was just in a car um, earlier before this, just thinking, oh wait, I spent all this time encouraging other people. I actually should encourage myself.
Yeah, I am just kind of absorbing everything everyone's saying. Thank you, Cassie. Go. Sorry. Um, yeah, I'm still definitely like in the in and out phase. I feel like there's times where I'm really flowing in Son of Laughter. It feels good. I know that's who I am, but then it's just like something happens or whatever, and I haven't quite developed the skill yet of like staying in Son of Laughter when those things come. But I will say like I'm getting better at it of recognizing when I'm not in that, and like what the signals are whenever something's off. So not always getting it right off the bat, but I'm getting better at identifying that, learning what that looks like. Also, out of this group, I feel like I'm probably the newest person in the identity thing, like newest to receive it. So I'm just trying to like, I'm kind of like learning off of you guys of what this looks like because I've had no other examples. So I'm just pulling from each of you. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely been a journey for me of like self-esteem, self-image, and especially like the inner critic, that voice inside of your head that's always like, "Oh, you suck." And I know. Yeah, and so just learning how to build those like mental strongholds of like, no, this is who I am. Like I'm Son of Laughter. Like these things come. Sometimes they get in. I'll be honest. Sometimes they do. But like I'm getting better at like, nope, you don't belong here. You know, get out. Like this is my space. And yeah, keeping that like positive self talk. Like I'll wake up in the morning, I look in the mirror, and I'm say, "You're a Son of Laughter. You're a good person." And I don't always believe that, but I know it's true. Yeah, calling each other out. It hurts. It hurts a lot because like you were saying, Patrick, like when you're in and out of that, and when you're out of it, like it's kind of painful. And so like when somebody close to you, especially, is like, hey, you're not Son of Laughter. Like I know, but it still hurts when you say it. But it's also on the flip side of that. It's because like Evelyn knows that's who I am. She believes I can live in that, and so her calling me out, excuse me, calling me out is really more like calling me higher, and like, oh yes, yes, that's who I am. Sometimes it really sucks that I have to be really vulnerable, which is not something I love doing, but it always helps. Yeah.
I think like there's so much in that of one embracing the journey that like when we look at examples in the Bible, like none of them got it on day one. But I felt so much freedom, I think, especially in accountability of that differentiation between false identity and true identity. And acknowledging that like the false identities that we've had throughout our lives are just straight up lies. Like, and that one is the biggest one for me because I mean, I am blessed and cursed to work at the church where Jonathan, who like operates in this every day, will not hesitate to call you out. And the first few times, like, so I'll be very vulnerable and honest. My biggest false identity was that I am bad. And as a like desire to do everything right and be a perfectionist, when I feel that I am bad, I did something wrong, it instantly goes to the I am bad place. And like the first few times that Jonathan did not hesitate to call me out on that and says, well, like right now, like you seem like you're really worked up about something you did wrong. Like that sounds like I am bad. Like, is that what you're feeling right now? Like you shouldn't feel like you are bad. Like you're a sacred vessel. And like the first few times, like, wow, yes, that hurt. You're just like, oh, like, yeah, that hurts. But now, like, when it happens, it's, oh, like, you're right. Like, that's so false. That's not me. So, like, I shouldn't even feel that in this moment. And it's not like you feel what you feel, right? So, like, you can't make yourself not feel something. But it's becoming so much easier to go to that, oh, like I am a sacred vessel. So this isn't about who I am being bad. This is about, oh, I operated out of myself for a second. Like I need to go back into that. And like showing grace for slipping out of who I am is no longer integrated into identity. Those are all false things. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I feel like something that I heard you say is like almost your emotions start to connect more with your true self than with your false self. So your emotional reaction to operating in your false identity becomes lesser and lesser. Like almost that soul level connection with those things are your soul's really, submitting to your spirit, which is submitted to the Father's spirit, which is telling you who you truly are. And then it's a little less painful to get ripped back into that, true identity. So that's really cool to see, like, because it's so true. Like your emotion, like the first couple times, it's like, oh, like straight to the heart. But then after a few more times, you're like, okay, yeah, you're right. Like, and then eventually you're like, when you're in your true identity, your emotions are so charged by that some of those things like almost fuel, like when the lies come or when something happens and you respond correctly, you're like, it almost, empowers you, or it almost makes you like feel good because you're like, oh, like, no, like I totally 100% of the time in my false identity would have went down this rabbit trail of like feeling awful about myself, and now I can stand in that, and like not only do I feel like not awful about myself, but I feel even better about myself because I know that I'm, being who I was made to be.
I'd also say too that it's almost for me at least, it's the separation that is the pain, like that struggle point. It's not necessarily like that this exists and this exists. It's the actual removal of things as they fall off that can feel somewhat jarring and like it wants to just send you down a different path. You know how you know that feeling that you guys like when you're like on a different path, but you're like, I don't think I should be on this path, but you don't necessarily know how to get over to this other path. And then you spiral, and then you go down into the sunken place, and you go deep. No, I'm just kidding. 3 hours later, yeah. So it does. For me, it was really nice to be able to even just put easy words to what you're saying, the lies that you believe first, because that's part of the process, is to identify the lies you believe about yourself and about God. And so for me, who's not very much of a word person, I don't do the pretty word thing like Joanna and Meg and some other people. That was really nice to be like, oh yeah, I don't believe God doesn't have my back, or I don't believe that. Like, yeah, but I was feeling it all inside already. It was just to go through that whole process and be, put words to it. So
What would you guys say has been the most helpful thing, like that first day after getting your identity, to like digging deeper?
Truth, resting in that word, really, like just don't try to do too much, but just know that whenever you're going to encounter God, that you're bringing those things that he's already said to you before him, and just like, okay, like you're saying this and I'm believing it's true, so like what else do you want to kind of say? And for me, uh finding scriptures and things like that of like, okay, well, like, mine's a little easier, like I am tongues of fire, like I think anybody could pull that one out of the Bible pretty quickly, but then allowing him to go beyond what I think it is. So holding loosely, I guess, what I'm hearing when I first hear that, like, and going, okay, but that's not who I am. But what about this are you trying to tell me are attributes, characteristics of who I am? And it's so cool to see day one that switch happen of like, okay, I could read this scripture a million times, but now he's speaking to me directly about something that's foundational in our relationship. So I think like day one, finding your outlet, like of where you connect with God. You know, I know for a lot of people it's worship music or it's out in nature and things like that. So going to the place where you meet God and expecting to meet him in a more true sense. Like having that expectation of like, I'm going to meet you in a new way because I know who you are a little bit clearer. I know who I am a little bit clearer. So for me, day one, that was like the biggest way that I did that.
Okay, I'm gonna be the one that brings the Gopa-ism into the room. Shocking, I know. I think for me, like one of the most powerful things was letting go of being a human doer and embracing being a human being. And what that means for me is like I'm such a like if I get something, I want a 10-point plan on how to make that thing happen, right? So like here I heard God tell me I'm a sacred vessel. Like what 10 things do I need to do to become a sacred vessel, right? Like but letting go of that from step 1 of like, oh, like this isn't something that I might one day become. Like this is something God has called me from the day that I was born. And if that is true, like I can let go of I fall short of that at every step. It's no, I am that at the base of who I am. So let go of trying to make it happen and let God remind me of when I'm operating in and out of that.
We had a comment here from Angela saying that she feels out of the loop because she wasn't able to attend identity classes. So don't worry, because we're doing at least 2 or 3 of them a year, right? And on this one coming up, if you haven't gone through the first part of it and want to do all of that, we'll set up a meet to a one-on-one to get all of this first section done, where you hear your identity and all the lies and weed through that, and then you can attend the Identity Applied event afterwards. So it's going to be cool. So don't feel like you missed out, because there's still an opportunity. End ad. Okay. You want me to ask that? Here, you ask that.
No, just I think it's a good moment. Like that's a really good example that like here we talk about this thing that we do at A Life Church that is hearing your identity from God, and like we facilitate that 4 times a year as ways to make it happen. But the truth is that God has told every single human being who you are from the day you were born, and he's been trying to tell you in a way that you can hear it. And I think that this process is super helpful. Like Jonathan has found key questions of where you go to God directly and you ask him questions and create space to listen and respond. And so please register and do those because it's super powerful. But also know if you haven't done that, it doesn't mean you don't have an identity in God. Like he's trying to tell you every day. And you can right now pause and think of moments where you felt fully alive and like you were like, oh man, like that felt so good to do this thing. Even if it was just one day in your life that felt like that, you were bumping into what God was telling you who you are. And so to lean into that and ask God, like God will talk to you whether you're in A Life Church or not. Like ask him, like, what was that, God? Like, what was I bumping into? Who do you say I am? And when something feels really not right, pause for a moment. And if you are using any kind of negative I am verbiage, realize, oh, I'm operating in what we call a false identity. I'm operating in a lie that isn't what God would say about me. So I want to pause and ask God to speak to that space. And like, that's what we're trying to talk about today.
Yeah. And I would say the identity is important because it's an anchor. And so the things that we are discussing is about just being anchored. Circumstances, people have car wrecks, people die, people get cancer, people get all kinds of stuff that deters you in life, and they toss you to and fro. And so what the identity does, it anchors you and connects you deeper in God in those moments, and God is just speaking to you. Nope, the circumstances is not who you are. This is who I've called you to be. And what it does is it keeps you from reacting out of desperation or reacting out of this need to feel something when God's just saying, no, I got you. This is what I called you. Sit here, be in this, and I'll take care of you. This is why it's so important.
Angela, so the date for the identity applied is November 8th. So what you have to do, and anybody else watching that wants to get on this, is you can register. Maybe we can find a link and put it in there. And register, but you're gonna click what's the first? You have to click identity applied, and
There's a general registration. So if you've done the Hear Your Identity before, you click that one. And then there's one called Hear Your Identity. And just when you click on that one, it tells us that we need to set up a one-on-one session with you before this event to go through the first process. So.
okay. I think we should do what you said and pause for a moment. For everybody online who's watching right now, we can pray into this. One of the very first questions that is asked, I'm not going to give away the whole thing here, but one of the first questions is, what is God telling me right now? But then it's also, what's a lie, I believe, about God? And that is just like we are saying here. You can ask this. I've asked this so many times just throughout my day. Like, okay, I'm not operating in this. And if I don't feel like it's the lie I originally heard, which was God doesn't have my back, I'll ask again, okay, God, what lie am I believing about you right now? And it's been really, really revolutionary for me to reset. So we're just going to take a moment. I'm going to pray into this. If everybody can bow your heads and close your eyes. Just kidding. We're just going to ask this question. So, Father, for everybody watching, everybody who's even done this before, we just sit here with you, and God, reveal to us, what is a lie that we're believing about you? And if something's kind of come up and stirred up inside of you, just hold on to that. And then you will ask too, what's the opposite? So what's the truth then about you, God, in that? I heard that that my lie is that I don't believe that God's footsteps make that path for me to go. Like, you know how I saw a picture of like the snow, and how if you're walking behind somebody and you try to, the snow is so deep that you try to step in, that his footsteps aren't making that for me to follow. So, which is funny, because like the funny thing about lies is that we would, like, now that you say it out loud, you're like, that's ridiculous. Of course his footsteps are leading the way. Of course I'm so but it's a subconscious thing. So just kind of release it. And so, God, for anybody online who's gotten this, the lie that you believe, God, we give it up to you, and we release it to you. David, you got anything else on that? I don't believe you.
I think it's really good to like be vulnerable in these things, and like to acknowledge that just because we've done this process once doesn't mean there's only one lie. That like, you're like, oh, now I'm good. Like, I've done this thing at A Life Church, and so I know who I am, and I've identified the lies, and I'm good for life, right? Like, I hear something every single time, and it's super powerful. So the one I heard was that I don't believe that God is big enough. And the instant thing I thought of was the list of 10 things that I felt overwhelmed by this week because I was going to be the only one that picked them up and did them, and that they're too big for God to do, so I should do them. And like saying it out loud, like it's almost comedic, like where I'm just like, oh, like, but here's all the nudges that God was giving me all week of like, I am big enough and this is where I want to partner with you and things I want to do with you. And I think that's what a lot of this is, like it's an invitation to partnership with God and like allowing him to speak to all the false things that we're going to pick up throughout any circumstance.
And I know I feel for a lot of people around me a lot of times. And so when I'm listening and hearing God, I oftentimes hear what's going on in a room, but I also need to hear directly from God for myself. So if you heard something that feels true, but it also feels disconnected from yourself, that might be your nudge to ask a little bit more specific or stick with God to like hear what is really in your heart, because sometimes there's layers to it. And that's one of the nice things about like the identity events and things like that, that when we're doing that, Jonathan creates an atmosphere where it makes it a little easier and a little clearer to hear. And then also you're in a room that's focused on supporting you to do that and to helping you through the challenges, because there will be challenges in what you hear. Like not everybody feels like that they hear God very clearly. Like, yeah, we stopped and prayed for 15 seconds and you're like, yeah, but a little bit as we've been trained in that, and we've created a lifestyle of that. Whereas if you've never done that, sometimes that's a benefit. Sometimes you hear clearer because you're not full of like, well, what do I think it should be, or well, it's got to meet all these requirements. Like I think the 10th thing is the first thing you heard was God. The second thing was you trying to talk yourself out of that it was God, and by the third or fourth thing you've heard, you're so confused that you just like, maybe I shouldn't try to hear from God. Yeah, just stop. But no, I think like for myself, knowing that about me, like I always know I have to like, okay, yep, that was you, God. Tell me more. Like, like, well, what is that? Like, is that true? Because I don't want to just, latch on to the first thing that I hear as like, that's my identity, because, or that's like the lie that I'm believing, but just to, like stick in it, keep asking. And the atmosphere that the identity intensives do is to help create a little bit more clarity, or have people around you to support you in that. And to like we're doing here, like you're voicing it out to all of you and to all of us. And there is a power in having to express it, because it makes it a little bit more real.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you got like to humanize it that way, because as we do talk about it, like you're saying, we've been through this several times, and it's nice to like have people in we didn't all go through this all at once. And to humanize it even more, when I say I've asked God about lies, I'm talking like 2 or 3 days of not living out of my identity, and just kind of digging and being like, God, what is this? What is this? And it could be that he's not talking. It could be that I'm not hearing. Like, it's all these things that I believe. I know. I highly believe that it's always, me not having the ability to hear or whatever, because I think God is always talking. I'm just not always tuned in. But it is that process you go through, like, God, why aren't you talking to me? Or like, how far gone am I? And just the back and forth, and that's where that separation that I was talking about earlier comes in. But yeah, to humanize it, it's very much, sometimes it takes that much time. So it's not always just that quick. And so, yeah. Anyway.
I also feel like, as there have been a lot of people, because I know a lot of you watching have gone through the identity intensives, or have heard your identity, or have done things similar to this, kind of almost like in preparation, or to build some momentum and get people prepared for what, I guess, is it 2 weekends from now?
Yeah.
What that kind of looks like, or to kind of realize I guess to create a posture of, okay, well, we're doing this secondary intensive of walking that out, and like, how do you prepare yourself? And we've talked a little bit about a lifestyle of identity, of hearing your identity and partnering with God and walking in that. And I think a lot of what that event is talks about some of those things, but maybe talking more specifically about what that event looks like, or like what we go through, and that could be a good idea for people that are like, okay, well, I've heard my identity. Yes, I'm doing these things. I'm walking out a lifestyle of acknowledging when I'm not walking in my true identity, and hearing God clearer and what he said to me in my true identity. But now kind of like, do I just keep doing that for forever, or yes, what's the next step?
I'm glad you asked. No. From what I remember, I've only done. Has he done this twice? Just once. Okay, that's good, because here I'm like, I don't remember the second time, because there was none. I remember a lot of it. The second one being about purpose. So we switched from focusing on what God was saying to us in those moments to, okay, now how do I live that out with purpose? And so one of the big things for me in that was hearing my purpose as anointed hand, because I can be anointed hand, but what do I do with what do I do with my hands, guys? God, what do I do with my hands? I don't know. And so my purpose, I heard, was to lift up those who I was sent to, which is a big deal for me. But then he went even deeper into some deeper purpose questions. I don't know that. Should I leave people in suspense? Okay. Actually, I don't even know if this was on an applied weekend. I know it goes into it. He didn't get into that part? Okay. Well, it's good. You should come. Yeah. It's a lot of going deeper. Like, do you remember any of some of the like deeper topics he went into?
So I think we kind of at the first time that we did this deeper one, we kind of focused on three things. And the first was when you're feeling stuck, how to get unstuck. And that like speaks a lot to what Patrick kind of just shared of like some of us struggle to hear God or to believe that we hear God. And I think for a lot of people, when you go through this journey, like that's something that comes up and you work through. But it doesn't just like you worked through it once and now I'm like so confident I hear God great. And so it was a lot of tools on that, on how to get unstuck and how to, when you do struggle to hear God, to lean in, and like tricks that you can do to hear God. So that was one thing. And then the second, which was what I got most out of the Identity Applied event, was asking for like, this is definitely not how Jonathan would say it. He would use much better words, but like, I'm going to call it like a micro identity. Like, what is something that I'm about to go through that you want to speak identity to, God? And so, like, an area of life, like, and it usually has to do with something that you're about to be challenged in, that you need to like remember who you are for. So I'll just share what I heard, because that I don't know other people's experience in that. This is great. Water is falling from the sky. Like miracles happen every day. But like God spoke to me specifically at that first Identity Applied event about my identity as a mother, and how like sacred vessel like is an important aspect of being a mother. And I was a month away from giving birth. So like that's why he wanted me to hear that at that time. But like there was a lot of focus on that. Like what is, like, we talk a lot about the global who we are, but like what in each sect of your life is God trying to tell you about aspects of who you are and how your greater identity plays into that. And so there was deeper levels that he went into. And then the third is purpose, and how, one, if you didn't get to the purpose part, because I don't know about you guys, but when I went through the Hear My Identity, like by the time that you get to purpose, you have an emotional hangover already. And you're like, wait, now I have to have a purpose in this? Like, right. And it can be the hardest part to hear. So, like, that's something that I've had to dive deeper into. And I feel like now we've like gone to the, like, we're going to tease like what the greater purpose thing is that he talks about is. So I'm not going to tell you, but it's really good. We've decided to just tease it. There's an aspect where it becomes deeply personal, I think, in your purpose.
And I think Jonathan has alluded to it a few times on a Sunday, and I'm sure those who are tuned into it already like understand that, but it is a huge part of it. But also going into the subsects, it allows you to realize that God wants to meet you in your identity, specifically in different realms of your life. It's not like a fire hose of like, here's your purpose. You've been living in it your whole life. You just don't, or like it's been true your whole life, but you just didn't know it. Like now try to come in alignment with it. It's like, okay, like Jesus is serving you in every aspect of your life, reminding you this is who you are, like as tongues of fire at your workplace. It is not the same as you are with your family or to a stranger, like to your best friends. Like this is like, it's really Jesus connecting with you and intimately walking you through that in each area of your life. It's not just like okay, now you have to go walk around with we did the name badges of like, I am tongues of fire, and that's super cool. But like, I feel like in a lot of like the personality tests and things like that, I'm not a huge proponent of them, and you'll hear that in what I say, but is like, oh, it's a badge of like, everything must fit into this box. Everything must align with this truth because this is what 60 questions told me 6 times over, and so it's got to be true. And it's like, okay, but what about the one who formed you? What did he say? And do you think he's so short on words about who you are together with him that he would just give you 3 words? Like, no, like he's gonna like walk you through it in a very real, very intimate way. Like, like I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert. It's like, whenever I hear that of somebody, I was like, okay, so like you have no clue who you are then, because you've made it as simple as you possibly can to like make your world make sense, and that's fine. It's nothing against you, but it's like, okay, like when I say tongues of fire, I'm thinking about like, okay, well, when I try to give somebody a word that's just to make them feel good about themselves, that's not tongues of fire. It could feel nice and comforting, but it's not something that's going to bring them true life. Like acknowledging what God is saying in their lives, or saying something that is what I feel like God is speaking to them, even if they don't want to hear it or you don't want to give the word, that's tongues of fire. And it's like, those things are very similar, but they're very different. Of like, I'm an extrovert, I need to go make sure that I'm bringing energy to every atmosphere that I'm in. And it's like, oh, okay, but like, maybe you're not supposed to be the one talking right now. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, like, okay, like I'm a preacher, like I'm supposed to preach, I'm supposed to, like get out there and speak the word of God. And it's like, okay, but like, where's God telling you to preach right now? Like, is he saying, I'm giving you your next word to preach, and not grab the microphone? And now I'm like holding the microphone, I'm like, all right, let it go. But it's really that clear of like needing to really sit with it in each scenario. And the intensity does, like, it shows you how to do that for real.
I think we just kind of got a beautiful example of like what that is. Like I'm just sitting here, I'm like, wow, that was fire. Like, oh, tongues of fire. Like, and yeah, no, exactly. And like, I think that's so powerful to like kind of like let go of that preconceived box. Like, if we just went by that, it would be like, okay, Patrick's tongues of fire, he should probably do the live stream on Sunday. Like, that's who he is, right? And he'd probably say no. He'd be like, that's not what I want to do. But look what happens when Tongues of Fire has the mic. Like, So that like is just like a beautiful example of that. Like, let's not all run to Eric with our broken computers and be like, anointed, oh wait, I do that, but anointed hand has to fix it. But look at what happens when anointed hand like touches things. And so like I just think that's a really beautiful example of what you were saying.
Yeah, and I think we're going to do some final thoughts here because we're going to wrap up. But it is just it's posture. It's living not from that outside in perspective, but inside out. So, and I've noticed that the stuff when I live from the inside out, the outside stuff I get to use as tools. If I do the opposite, then the tools all of a sudden basically tear me apart because there's seemingly a lot of tools around. So, why don't we go around and do final thoughts, and then we'll do, a plug and get up on out of here.
Final thoughts. I would say to anyone who is thinking like, oh, I just can't do this or it's too much, that it is. It is. But that's the whole point, is like God is the one who's able to help you walk through this. If you could do it yourself, you wouldn't need him. But there's also no pressure. Like, if you're feeling pressure, that's not from, it could be from God. But I think most people can tell the difference of like, oh, there's a pressure that I'm putting on myself, or there's a pressure from God. The pressure you put on yourself is just like anxiety. I need to change. There's so many things, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's kind of like being a victim. And then pressure, son of laughter. Victim, just being a victim. But pressure from God, it can be uncomfortable, but it's leading you to grow. It's leading you into a better place, and it's a good pressure. Just for anyone who's like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, you can and you can't. It's a partnership with God, but it's so beautiful. And I can say, like, from personal experience, like, it can be a roller coaster, but buckle up. It's a good ride.
Final thoughts, I guess, is if you're in that in-between space where you've heard your identity and you just feel like things have not been moving forward and you just still feel stuck, this is worth it to come to. And, hearing from God and being anchored toward God in that way is worth it, even if you have to spend the rest of your life digging. Don't give up on yourself. Don't quit on yourself. Don't stop. You're worth it. And also the people around you, God has given you something that the people around you need. So it's very important that you come alive and be alive for the people around you.
Yeah, I think that would be my final thought is I hope you're experiencing like TJ and David, like as they're sharing that, they're being who they are in their true identity. And when you know who you are and you're living out of that and you're partnering with God in that, it creates atmospheres like this where you're manifesting who you're supposed to be, and it changes rooms, it changes lives. So I hope that there's an excitement to do more of that, to have more atmospheres where people are fully alive, and just see how it changes your world, see how it changes your life and the lives around you.
I guess one of my final thoughts would be like, I am so grateful for our A Life Church family and the transparency that we have. And I see a lot of you online putting your identities, and I think we've been very vulnerable here today. So now we have a lot of accountability partners in this, of really like engaging with each other on this and treating it as the journey that it is. Like, Rachel, I was so encouraged by what you posted about, like, Rachel's not here with us at A Life Church right now, but she has found this group of chaplains that she's using as accountability partners, and they've never gone through this identity version, and that's so cool. So I just think, like, treat this as a life journey and not just something that we do for a season here at A Life.
Just a quick follow up to that. Like, we've done this now with people who are not part of A Life, not here. Like, we've done this over Skypes, over phones, and things like that. So, and like, we may have gone through this several times or helped do some of the events, but like, you can help people walk through their identity and like getting some clarity on it through this event, like, and especially this next level of helping people get unstuck is super helpful if you're like passionate about this and bringing this to more people than just, this community.
I guess my final thought would be, you need this. And I hope that it comes through on the other side as a sense of godly conviction in like, you people need this. I can't tell you how I've seen out with everything that goes on right now, people pulling at all sorts of I ams. And honestly, when being able to go through this and being able to have this relationship with God, I'm not looking at these people being like, you don't have it. I'm actually looking at people going, my heart breaks for you, because there is such another next level relationship with God. Instead of spiraling out in the world, God will set your direction and you'll go that way. And that's just it. And the only way to do it is to partner with God in this. And so when I say you need this, I'm not joking. I needed it. I feel like everybody who's gone through it's like, man, I needed that. So I'm really, really excited. We had a question about if we were going to do an online thing, right? I do not think that we will be streaming this online. This event does not typically go that way, mostly because of how vulnerable the room ends up being. I don't know if that'll ever change in the future, but we really encourage people, if you want to do it, you're going to show up. I think we have somebody flying in just to do both sessions, actually, because they haven't done it before. So it can be that important to do that. So November 8th, you can register online. We'll put the link in the description again. Thank you, Evelyn. You're doing a great job. And yeah, you can register for either just the Applied if you've gone through it before, or both, and we'll set up. You'll hear from us about doing a private session to get that first section done, and then we'll move over. So yeah. I'd say that if everybody had not heard, like, if the question about what lie am I believing about God, I'd encourage you, if you haven't heard it, sit in it. And if everybody in there or whatever had heard it, I would then sit and ask, okay, what's the truth about that? And then just let that conversation go from there. I think that would be good.
We just got to call out how amazing Evelyn is, because she also put a challenge online. So I'm going to read this out loud for the group in case you're not reading the comments, because it's really good. It's really important. So definitely do what Eric just said, but also do this. Okay? So the challenge is look into a mirror and say, I am. Either say your identity or say God's precious child. Say it at least 3 times while looking at yourself in the eye. Believe in and walk in who God says you are. So do that.
And you can do it if you don't have if you guys are in a group, do it to each other. Look into somebody else's eyes and do it. Yeah. Oh snap. Oh snap.
The challenge that I posted is what TJ and I will call each other out and do. So it's like, if one of us isn't acting in our identity or walking in it, we're just like, whatever. The other one will be like, go look in a mirror. It's like, don't want to. Please don't call me out. Yeah. I don't know. It was the only place for it. But yes, do that. It works, I promise. It sounds silly, but like if you gotta mean it. But you just gotta look yourself in the eye and be like, I am, because otherwise, what are you? I am Roaring River.
Oh, I will also add, as the second person in that. um, it really sucks a lot, and it's really awkward and can be kind of painful sometimes to like do that seriously. Because yeah, it's very vulnerable. It grates because you're like, oh, I don't want to do that, but it works every single time. So you should do it.
Okay, November 8th. You don't want to miss it. Also, we didn't do tithes. Yeah, so this is how we're gonna end this. We have a slide for this, but if you want to give to the church, you should. If you don't, you should. And we're gonna put that link up. So everybody, thank you for joining us. We had a lot of fun doing this, and we hope to see you November 8th.